Intergalactic planetary, intergalactic, intergalactic planetary, intergalactic, intergalactic planetary, intergalactic.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Simply Cyber Firesides. I'm your host, Gerald Auger, and today we're going to be diving into cybersecurity education, awareness, career development, GRC mafia action with one of the most influential voices in our industry. See, if this was recorded, we could go back and edit that, but we're live, and that's what's cracking. Now, if you are joining us live and you just got to see that, say hello in chat, drop an Oprah emote if you're a squad member, say hello, engage. Remember, this is an interactive show. We'll be taking your questions throughout the session, so don't be shy. Say hi to a friend in the audience. And if you got a question for me, or more importantly for Caitlyn, like that's why we're here, to listen to her, put a Q in front of it just so it's easier for me and the mod team to be able to flag it and be able to pull it up. Now, I am incredibly excited to introduce today's guest. Many of you know her as Cybersecurity Girl, and her journey is fascinating, like really fascinating. She started as a mechanical engineer working with companies like GE and Abbott Laboratories and Chevron, before finding her true calling in cybersecurity, which I absolutely can, identify and resonate with. I love cybersecurity. Over the past decade, she's built an incredible career performing global cybersecurity assessments across 20 key sectors, implementing ISO 27001 and working with frameworks like NIST CSF and NIST RMF. Her expertise spans from technical implementation to privacy, having helped organizations with GDPR compliance during her time in London, and later specializing in data protection and privacy at DLA Piper and Protiviti. But what truly sets her apart is her passionate commitment to democratizing cybersecurity knowledge. For the past 3 years, she's been on a mission to encourage diversity in cyber, demystify cybersecurity careers, and teach essential online safety to the public. She's built one of the largest cybersecurity social media platforms in the world. Like literally, she's one of the biggest ones in our space, right? Reaching over 1.3 million followers, which I think that number is actually from her LinkedIn profile. And I think that number is actually inaccurate. I was kind of like pulling things up. I think it's much higher than that actually. And she generates up to 30 million on a slow month impressions. Okay. So she's got some reach and she's helping so many people. It's phenomenal. In June 2023, she took a bold step to fully commit to this mission, founding Cybersecurity Girl LLC and recently co-founding Cyber Career Club to help aspiring professionals break into the field. So she's helping my Aunt Dorothea and, stay safe, good cyber hygiene. She's helping us break into the field or level up our game. Truly an impact. And her impact has been widely recognized in addition to being on Simply Cyber, right? She was just named Cybersecurity Woman of the Year influencer for 2024. And Caitlyn's listed among the top 50 CISOs and cyber leaders shaping the future of information security. As if that wasn't enough, she's just a boss, straight crushing it. And she's just a really, really personable, kind person. You guys are going to love this conversation. So please do me a favor, drop your Oprah emotes in chat. I see many of the regulars in here. I see PBO and Code Brew, Jesse Johnson with the mod team. I'm sure Kimberly can fix it. Chris Whitlock of the GRC Mafia is up in here. FedEx, as always, good to see you. Philip Martin, hey, what's going on, guys? Please join me in welcome Cailin Sarian to Simply Cyber Firesides. Caitlyn, let me go grab her and bring her up here and let's get into it. What is up, Caitlyn? How you doing?
No, just blushing in my room over here. No big deal.
Well, I may have prefaced that and set that up, but
I got some big shoes to fill now.
I will tell you that is an accurate statement. That is what you've done. It's truly phenomenal. And, really seriously, congratulations on just all that you've accomplished already. Now, before we get into cybersecurity, okay, if you OSINT Caitlyn's LinkedIn profile to kind of like figure out what she's up to, one of the things you might notice is that she worked with, or she's part of the LA Galaxy Star Squad. Okay. That's very different from cybersecurity, Caitlyn. So what was that experience like?
Yeah. So I really enjoyed cheerleading. I cheerleaded my whole life. I actually went to SMU and cheered in college too. I loved it, and I always consider myself just like a cheerleader for everyone. And it turns out that that's what I'm doing right now. But uh, I was there for a year when I was doing grad school as an engineer, and I wanted to do some. I missed cheerleading, so I was like, I might as well try it. This is before we had any of like the football teams, so we didn't have that option, but. It was, and I'm aging myself now, but it was amazing. I loved it. And I was there when we won the MLS Cup. So I couldn't complain about it. It was pretty great.
Oh, that is truly awesome. Yeah, I'm from New England and we have the New England Revolution, but I feel like that's like a tax write-off for Bob Kraft because he owns the Patriots too, because they don't really invest. But no, it's definitely very cool. LA is a cool city.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a blast, and so I'll explain the whole thing. So part of my journey with this was I did cheerleading my whole life, and I also was an engineer, and I never felt like I could fit in because there wasn't a lot of women, and I couldn't see myself as an engineer, but I was really good at math and science. And so I actually applied as an elementary education major when I first went to school, and I was like, I changed majors because I wanted to do engineering, but I was doing cheerleading because I was like, I felt like my life was in like two separate boxes. Like I was like this, cheerleader, like bubbly, like really excited girl all the time outside of work. But when I went to work as a cybersecurity or an engineer, I had to be like a shell of who I was.
Mhm.
And part of the reason why I loved starting this Cybersecurity Girl journey was because it was like this culmination of my whole self to the public. Like I mean, I would work at law firms, I'd work at consulting firms, and I couldn't show up, or at least I felt like I couldn't show up my full self. So that was one of the reasons why I started, but I digress.
No. I mean, that is wildly interesting. I mean, one of the things I did want to ask you was, phenomenal. Caitlyn has the way I read it, a bachelor's and a master's in mechanical engineering, which, by the way, if you're following along at home, they don't just give those out. That's like a very difficult degree, both of them, frankly, to earn. At least I went to UMass Amherst. Like I was in computer science, but the engineering quad was the same space. And you would just hear the engineers groan about thermodynamics. Like, I don't know.
Gosh, that was the worst.
Yes. Okay,
So
yes.
bad.
I wasn't even an engineering degree, and I have PTSD from thermodynamics. So, but I wanted to know, like, how does someone like yourself, who spends all this time, energy, and effort, studying to become and truly becoming a mechanical engineer, transition into cybersecurity? Like, was there a specific moment or an experience where you're like, oh my God, this is my calling?
Yeah. So I had a passion for learning. Like I absolutely loved problem solving, which is like, I just consider every engineer a glorified problem solver. And the reason why I went into mechanical was because I was like, I don't know which area I'm really passionate about. So let me just try, like, it's like the baseline, it's standard. And I did that, and I did three different jobs, and I loved every single job I did. But at the end of the day, I was like, could I see myself doing this for the rest of my life? And I grew up in a family, and still growing up in the family, where like you have the same job your whole life, right? Like, and you love it. Like my grandpa, unfortunately had his funeral before he had his retirement party, because he worked until he was 95 and absolutely loved what he did. And my dad doesn't have any show any signs of stopping. And so I was like, can I envision myself being in this role for the rest of my life? And the answer was always no. And when I stumbled upon cybersecurity, I was talking to this lady during an interview, and she was kind of telling me all these areas of cyber, and I just got really excited because I was like, okay, I don't think I could get bored with this. Like, I think this could be something I could be in for a while. And if I don't like a certain area, I can move. And that's exactly what happened. So I started with absolutely zero experience, which is another reason why I started my channel. Like zero. Like I was really, really bad at coding. We had to take MATLAB in school. I had to take 2 semesters. That was like MATLAB and physics were like my worst classes in school. I could not stand them. And so I originally assumed like cybersecurity was coding. And I was like, I'm not going to tell this lady I want this job. I'm not going to tell her I'm bad at coding. And so I just said yes to the opportunity. And then I literally learned everything on the job. And I found out there were all the different areas of cyber, and I fell in love with it. And it's just something that constantly like allows me to use my brain and solve problems and just be extremely passionate about like all the little areas that I never even imagined existed.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite parts of cybersecurity, is just how vast it is as a field of study. And then on top of it, it's constantly evolving. So I always tell people, like, I want as many people to be in cybersecurity as possible, because it's given me a lot. I love it. But one thing I do caution people is, if you're not a lifelong learner, it really might be a very difficult row for you to hoe, because it's constantly changing. You have to desire that constant, input and feedback and stuff. I mean, have you gone down one path? I know you worked a lot in GRC, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but you do have that mechanical engineer. You were at Chevron. Like, I could see in a minute, like, oh, this professional is going to end up in industrial control system security. So, I mean, did you dabble a little bit before you found kind of like your calling within the industry?
I still feel like I don't have my calling within the industry. And I think that's what's so great about cyber is that I feel like I'll be great and I'll find like an area that I love for like 3 or 4 years. And I'll be like, okay, I kind of feel like I'm an expert now and I'm seeing the same things over and over again, or at least I'm encountering the same things. I'm going to move on. And so I actually first started in cyber transformation at EY, which at that point was just like you went into a company. A lot of times we went into a company after a breach or a company that was having issues with cyber, and we look at their cybersecurity stance from every area, right? So we'd look at access management, like threat detection and prevention, data protection, like all the areas, and we'd like have about 400 questions that we'd ask every team, and then we'd give them like a layout of, okay, you're rated this in threat protection comparatively to your, your counterparts. Like how do we get you to a better level, a more advanced level, or more blanking on the word, but basically
maturity level.
Yeah. There we go. That's the word, maturity. And so we were like helping them mature their cybersecurity stance, because at that point, this was like 10 plus years ago, companies just had like no idea where to start. They were kind of popping up random teams, like trying to figure out what to do. And so we were coming in there and really assessing all the different areas and telling them how mature they were. And if there was, teams that were immature, we'd come up with a path and help them figure that out. And I loved that because it helped me get an understanding of every area of cyber at that point in time. And then I was like, after 2 or 3 years, I was like, I'm kind of doing the same assessments over and over again. Let me try data protection. And I was doing like DLP scans. So I was going in, like implementing the DLP software, running the scans for a couple of weeks and saying, hey, this is like, what's going on in your environment. Maybe we should fix this. Maybe you should implement the DLP solution, and I'll train, the person that needs to be managing it. And then DLP and privacy, or data protection and privacy, was paired together at EY. So I was like, okay, let me try to figure this privacy thing out. And I got an opportunity to move to London before GDPR hit. And then I became like really obsessed with privacy. I came back, still obsessed with privacy. And while I was back in the US, I started realizing, like, I kind of want to tell consumers that they have these rights to their data. And I started like kind of flipping from being like, I want to protect the companies to like, I want to protect the consumers.
Yeah.
And so, and then I started my channel while I was still working, and it kind of just like went off from there. But yeah, I mean, I did a lot of GRC stuff in terms of like helping like map NIST frameworks or ISO frameworks. My first project ever was Cisco's cloud environment to get ISO 27001 certified. So absolutely love that. Learned a lot about it. Again, ISO is similar, where you have so many different areas that you have to help them with that you have to kind of learn a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And I always tell people, especially people trying to break into industry, like I broke in, I don't know, again, I did the research, but I don't know exactly when you went in, but like E&Y is a professional services company, huge conglomerate, not easy to break in with, but like they have tons of jobs, tons of opportunities. I broke in with KPMG Consulting and got in that way through DC and stuff like that. So I always advise people like, the way that consulting industry works, they charge X amount of money, and then their profit is the difference between what they pay you. So like if they hire junior people, there's a bigger delta, more profit. So, and anyway, so like, it's great to see, EY, same thing, KPMG Consulting. Like I tell people this all the time. And it's just, you're reinforcing it, which I love. Now, a question from chat coming in real quick. And from Gary Sergiatis, you had mentioned loving all different things, but do you have a dream job, like kind of a stretch goal, if you will?
I think I'm doing my dream job now. Like I said, I always was like, I felt like I was always a cheerleader. Like I always want to support and encourage and motivate. And I get to do that in 2 ways, right? Now I get to do it with my Cyber Career Club, which actually, by the way, one of my members is obsessed with this podcast / stream. So Derek, if you're watching, hello. But I get to like inspire the next generation. And then I also get to teach people and like cheer them on and be like, for me, I'm like, cybersecurity is not a scary thing. And it shouldn't be like It shouldn't be scary. It's something that we have to live with every day. We have to like understand how it works, and it's not that complicated if we understand the basics. And so I get to do that every day. I get to show up. I get to be creative. I get to figure out how to solve problems in different ways. I'm a little biased because I don't have to report to anyone anymore, which is great.
Oh my God, yeah.
So I honestly feel like I don't know what I did to be like, to have God put me in this position. I feel so blessed every day to wake up and be like, I can choose my own adventure. Did you ever read those books, by the way?
Oh my God, Choose Your Own Adventure books are the bomb. And we don't have to disclose your age because I never ask people their age, but I was born in 1979. My shows are always littered with like, late, 80s, early 90s references, hip hop, and then like Saturday morning cartoons, He-Man, stuff like that. So yes, Choose Your Own Adventure books were a staple in my grade school because we didn't have iPads,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I feel like my like job is right now, is like, I get to choose like every day, like what I'm going to dedicate more time to, and at the end of the day, it's always about helping. So it's either about helping like the people getting into cyber, or helping the people understand cyber and like protect themselves and protect their loved ones. And so I get to be a cheerleader for cybersecurity, which is like not a thing, but that's like what I like to say. So this is my dream role. I do think consulting is also part of my dream role. If you get like very antsy about like learning new things or want to keep learning, I feel like that's the best place to push yourself. I don't know if you feel the same way, but
yeah, yeah, basically.
Although I don't know if I want to be a partner.
No. So consulting's good. I'll tell you what. So this is one thing. So I advise people to break in with consulting, but for me, I wouldn't stay long-term with consulting because it is a lot of work. And there's two things about consulting, and I want to get mostly talk to Caitlyn here, but like with consulting, there's two things. One, you're on contracts, right? So if you're not on the contract, you're on the bench or on the beach, and like you're just overhead, and that's not good for the bottom line. So then the reason I was actually at Booz Allen Hamilton for like 6 years, and when I left there, it's because my wife was starting to have kids. I was not having kids. My wife was starting to have kids, and we were coming up for contract renewal, and it was like high stress. And like, if we didn't get renewed, I was probably going to get laid off. And I was like, I don't have time for this. That's one thing. And then two, typically you have to do a lot of travel, which is epic cool when you're young. But it's really not great when you're trying to raise a family. And by the way, traveling to San Diego or Rome or London is cool. But if you're just traveling for work, I got to tell you, a Marriott in London looks like a Marriott in Topeka, Kansas. In like an office building in Schenectady looks the same as one in Paris. Like, right. if you're just doing hotel, airport, office, you're not really traveling.
No, like everything you said is spot on, and that's why I left after manager.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was amazing. Like I literally had the best time, and I think that was a job I learned the most. And maybe it was because I'm like the most eager, and I like knew I needed, like I was drinking from, a hose, but I really enjoyed my time at the beginning. And now I'm like, I love it now. So I don't think I think it also depends on like what people want. There's some people that want to be like, have a steady job. Like I was asked like a year ago, hey, did you know that you like being uncomfortable all the time? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, just everything that you do, you put yourself in a position that makes you probably very uncomfortable, or like you need to grow or stretch to get into it. I'm like, yeah, that tracks. So there's some people that don't want that. That's totally fine.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I mean, you gotta listen to your own voice, your own calling, and like do the things that fill your cups. And if challenging yourself fills your cups, then push it. So let's just pull this up really quick. So this is Caitlyn's website or landing page or or homepage, whatever you want to call it, for Cybersecurity Girl. And I'm sure you can get to all the things there. But in leading up to my next question, and I believe I don't have the URL here. Let's see. Is it cybersecuritygirl.com? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Of course it is. Cybersecuritygirl.com. So, but this is her social media presence, right? This is Instagram, which, by the way, Cailin, I got to tell you, mad props to you. I have literally tried like Instagram and Shorts multiple times over my career. I swear it's because I'm like a Gen X millennial and I just don't get it. But I'm terrible at it. But if you go to, at Cybersecurity Girl on that, or on TikTok, if it's still around after Sunday, it looks like you use that same kind of profile with the pink circle background. And you chose not to do it on YouTube here, but these are her social media presence where she's pumping out really, really, I got to tell you, Caitlin, really, really engaging, fun, like pithy shorts. Like when I see them, I'm like, oh man, I wish I could do that. It's like inspiring, but at the same time, like intimidating. So go check her content out or subscribe to it. Like I swear to God, you've definitely seen her pop up in your feeds. But what I wanted to ask you is, okay, this is all a long way to get to the point. You've worked both in high level corporate roles and now, you're doing your dream job, essentially like an independent creator, but you're still doing education. You're still kind of pushing that GRC level forward for end users, for, individuals and for people who are just trying to consume and be better. What are your thoughts or what have you learned kind of about security awareness and training that like works differently in the real world versus kind of corporate environments?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that because I don't know if you knew this. It was kind of kept on the DL for a little bit, but I started my TikTok before I started Instagram. My Instagram was always personal up until like a year and a half ago, and they changed it to Cybersecurity Girl. And I was really embarrassed that I was even doing this. I was like, how am I a director level person, like putting out these TikToks that are like cybersecurity, but not really, like they're just like basic stuff. And so I was really embarrassed with my TikTok. And anyways, it doesn't matter. I kept doing
No.
TikTok.
Actually, I would argue it does matter, and I appreciate you sharing that because a lot of people might feel self. What's the word
Conscious.
I'm looking for? Huh?
Self-conscious.
Yeah, self-conscious. In my mind, I was thinking self-confident. I'm like, that's absolutely not what I'm trying to say. People could feel self-conscious, and then when you're saying it, like, you're out there doing it, but hearing you say about like these concerns and these fears, I think it's totally warranted. I appreciate you sharing it. So please continue, but like definitely, yeah, this is a safe space.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I was like, I wanted it to do this because I wanted to get more women in STEM. I wanted to educate the public and I wanted to demystify what cybersecurity was as a whole. And I was like, okay, if I start this, I'm only going to do TikTok because I want to reach the next generation of individuals. And Instagram, like it wasn't good at that point to push anything out. It just like you had your followers and that was it. And so I was like, I'm going to do TikTok. I'm going to post 3 times a day. I'm not going to have my name on it. There's no email that's going to be linked to me. This is literally, that's why it's called Cybersecurity Girl. It was never called my name because I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want anyone to Google me and try to figure it out. And so I did that for about 3 or 4 months before I started really realizing I got a lot of traction, like 3 times a day. Like I was doing a lot of posts. This is what I was doing in my free time after work. And then TikTok actually found me and asked me to like speak at RSA at one of their events. And I was like, no, it's okay. And then a year later, I was interviewing at TikTok to do data privacy there. And I got the job and I reached back out to the lady that had interviewed me or asked me to do, not an interview, but asked me to speak. And I was like, hey, by the way, I'm going to be at TikTok. Like, I'm so excited. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, I had no idea. Like, no, we want you on our team. So I actually decided I went through 12 more interviews and I ended up leading TikTok's global cybersecurity advocacy program. So I actually got my TikTok job from my TikTok, which is ironic.
That's super funny. That's so meta.
Yeah, it's like, it was kind of ridiculous. Everyone's like, oh, so you have a TikTok because you work there. I was like, actually, it's the opposite. I worked there because I had a TikTok. But I was leading their global advocacy and culture program, which basically meant that I was in charge of all cyber awareness training for the entire global company. And I had never done like a awareness training thing. Again, I was always like GRC, data protection, privacy, cyber transformation. And it was a lot more difficult than I expected because you had to go through so much red tape. And like there's so much like legal stuff about it too. And PR, like, oh, if one of our employees decides to record this and then post it, like what could happen? Or, legally with GRC, we have to make sure that we include like X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, that makes this like not fun to post. Like no one's going to want to watch like a legal term cybersecurity training video, like what am I supposed to do? There was like not a lot of creativity that I had there, which was very interesting. Considering like it was TikTok. So that made it difficult. It is a lot easier to educate the general public without having some weird like PR agendas and GRC agendas in the background.
Yeah, that's like a massive GRC job. Usually, end user awareness training is like a segment of your job if you're like, working in the GRC space. But I could totally see a company like that wanting to have like dedicated people. I also heard it. FedEx brings it up. Did you say you had 12 more interviews? Oh my God! Like at what?
I was leading a global team. Like I was like right under the CISO. So
Yeah.
it was necessary, but it was ridiculous. It was like, yeah, it was a lot. It was a
Interview.
lot of people. And then I'm not gonna lie, sounds really bad. I'll be very transparent with you. I kind of regretted doing that. I was like, I should have just stuck with privacy, because it was blending my two worlds to a point where it was like making training and awareness like not fun for me. I was like, this isn't fun. Like I can't do anything fun. And also I was responsible for, which they didn't tell me before I got there, helping the PR team mitigate fires when it came to cybersecurity. So basically what would happen is if TikTok was in the news, which it was constantly.
Yeah, you may have seen them in the news.
You may have seen them in the news a few times. We would have, and if it was cybersecurity related, which it pretty much every time was, I would have to go back and take it and say, okay, they're saying that this about us. How can we debunk this, or how can we prove otherwise without giving all this information? So I would go to all the engineering teams, work with PR. We'd have like 24 hours or less to manage all these issues and come up with a solution, which would have to be approved by like everyone and their mother, legal, PR, and everything like that. It was crazy. And then by the time I wrote a response back and it went through all of the stuff, it ended up just being like a cookie cutter, like, we don't do this. And I'm like, I'm trying to show the like world what we do, and you're not allowing me to show, because it was like some type of issue, we can't share that information, or if we share that, it could lead to this. And so it was a whirlwind. I will say, it was a lot. Learned a lot. Never again.
That reminds me of, I worked at a large company at one point, and we had like an active incident, and we needed to send an email out to the entire workforce. Like it was like a really bad situation, and we needed to communicate to everybody because it was the fastest way to get in front of it. And we were going to fire something out, but it had to go through like legal and PR and the communication team. Like by the time we got it approved and back, it was like 2 weeks late. Like the incident we were cleaned up and it was over. Yeah. It was like, what the hell? So yeah, totally feel that corporate grind. Now, Caitlin, if you do not want to answer this, it's fine. Okay. Kimberly can fix it. She's a mod. Great. Kimberly can fix it is amazing. She's just curious about life at TikTok, a career life at TikTok, as little or as much as you'd like to speak about that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different teams and a lot of different leaders. I think certain teams had an amazing career life. I like talk to a lot of people. My life, because I was in this weird role where like my role was created for me. And originally, like I said, it was only supposed to be awareness and training. And somehow, because there was such a huge gap, and I was the only one that really knew how to communicate cybersecurity topics in like a very digestible way, I got roped into a lot of these marketing and PR things. And I couldn't get my normal day job done without like working like 12, 14 hours. And then everything I did was always wrong. Like I couldn't win. And so for me, and I don't think it was meant to be like that, but like when you're fighting like PR battle nightmares around cybersecurity, and then you have like legal PR, every type of person trying to figure out the same thing. Like there was too many cooks in the kitchen. For like, it was just a lot. And I know it's because everything always felt like it was on fire when we were under such scrutiny for so long. And so it makes sense. I also wasn't able to do like my posting. They were starting to tell me that I was in conflict of interest, ironically, from my TikTok, even though they found me from my TikTok. So it was a very interesting thing. And I didn't mind, because I love the platform. Like it's what made me who I am. It's like literally like springboarded me to this. So I can't ever hate the platform, which is why I was so excited about. I didn't care about working out many hours. I didn't care about like kind of pushing that on, putting that on hold. But at that point, there was also like I was starting to have like a lot of mental health where I was like really, really stressed and anxious. And I started realizing it just like wasn't worth that much stress for me. But again, like, I think it really, really depends on like management style. Like I didn't fully align with my management. And that's totally normal. That happens at every job. There were different teams that I would have definitely aligned better to, but I was just like, at that point, I was like, I'd rather just do my own thing if you're going to start saying I'm in conflict of interest. And yeah, I wasn't able to build my brand. So I loved it. I think the culture there, depending on the team, is incredible. But like, and it's the same for every company, right? There's going to be good leaders and bad leaders. And by good, I mean good for you, like good for your personal perspective. And so yeah, it wasn't working for me. It wasn't meshing. The first couple months was great. And then once I started getting pulled into all the PR nightmares, and it wasn't the ideal situation. So be
Yeah.
very transparent. I love TikTok. I wish them nothing but the best. I still talk. I love it. Like I swear by it. I think what they're going through right now is like not acceptable in the US. Like I think that we have bigger fish to fry than trying to crush TikTok. But for me personally, the work-life balance was it was a struggle. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, that's another like pro tip that Caitlyn's dropping on everyone that, I empathize and it personally resonates. Like if you're good at something and people find out at work, they'll like exploit you basically, and you end up working like multiple jobs, or you wear multiple hats, or like, oh, Caitlyn can do that, or you know what I mean? And it sucks because it can lead to burnout and having you, not enjoy work. And that's no good for anyone.
I was told, oh, you need to be better at pushing more to your team. And I'm like, well, my team's already working normal hours, and I'm not going to make my team work more hours than I. Like, that's not how I lead. Again, different leadership styles. That's why. Like, I don't lead pushing everything onto my team and making them do it and then taking the credit. That's like, I would never be able to live with myself to do that. And so I was getting pushback from like, oh, well, you could do this if you manage your team correctly. I'm like, I'm managing my team correctly. They are already stressed and like working crazy hours. I'm not adding more to their plate. I will do this, but like it was a lot.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Like leaders like that is what people need. You're basically like protecting your staff instead of exploiting them. Like, oh yeah, like I'll exploit my staff. Let's go. No, I appreciate that, Caitlyn. So one of the things, changing gears a little bit here, and I'll look in chat in a minute for some questions to see if you guys are dropping them. And I do see some questions. I don't want to devolve this conversation into more politics and stuff like that. So just so everybody knows, okay? Now, Caitlyn, you make all this content and it's phenomenal, right? And you've mentioned that younger generations are actually more likely to fall for online scams than older ones, which a lot of older people, they get taken for a ride all the time. It's like in the news all the time, romance scams, to name a few, right? But, the younger people, they fall for it, even though they're, Gen Alpha or Gen Z, and they grew up with an iPad in their face and everything like that. Based on your experience creating security awareness content, right, on TikTok and socials and stuff, why do you think younger people are getting hit so hard? And, is there anything like you can do about it? Are you seeing any trends in your posting? Because and in full disclosure, I don't know how much engagement you're getting as far as like back and forth and your subscribers and followers like engaging with you to share their personal stories and stuff like that. But I am really curious about this younger generation.
Yeah. So I used to think like similar to what most people would think is like the older generation is the ones that are like, the probably biggest target. But the issue is like the youngest generation were born and raised on iPads. Like it's the iPad generation. They trust pretty much everything online, unfortunately. And like online is their reality. And so anything that anyone says online, again, goes back to like the misinformation and disinformation out there. It is nuts. But I think because of that, they're just so much more trusting, and it doesn't even like phase them that it could be like off, like, cause that's what they're like. If you told someone that was like 95, hey, you need to send this money through Venmo, they'd be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But if you said that to like, a younger kid, that's like a normal thing. Like I Venmo my friends all the time. Like it's a normal thing. So that's why it's really important to start educating users on just being more cautious, understanding misinformation, disinformation, and then understanding like all the information that, hackers and scammers can get on them.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. And it's funny, just to share a personal story, my Aunt Dorothea, who recently celebrated her 75th birthday, got a call from a scammer, and they're like, oh, like your computer, like you're fraud or whatever. And she answered on her flip phone, by the way. And they had like, all this scam and stuff. They're like, we need you to go on your computer and go to this website. And she's like, I don't own a computer. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, and she's like, I don't own one. I don't know what you're like, I can't do that. And they're like, oh, and they're like, all right. And they just hung up on her. Yeah. So like she was literally protected because of her lack of, technical acumen and adoption, which is hilarious.
Yeah. It is.
So yeah, anyways, as far as making content goes though, I mean, do you obviously there's a lot, you had mentioned it, like, oh, I'm doing a lot of kind of basic stuff. I mean, do you run the gamut of basic cyber hygiene? Is that kind of like what you do? Or I'm curious, because I'm doing a little bit of this myself right now. And I've kind of broken it into categories for myself. So I love GRC. I want everybody to know about GRC. And I have like GRC career tips, GRC interview tips, GRC tools and practices, GRC like power moves. Like, what are you seeing, or how do you break your content up? And like, do you see trends of like things that people just constantly don't understand, or what?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I mean, I really try to niche down. Like, for example, everyone has I'm trying to get to the public, right? So what is a public app? Everyone has a phone. Okay. Everyone has the same issues with the phone. You don't realize how much you're sharing. Okay. There's so many security issues on the phone, right? You can look at all the app permissions. You can look at the microphone. You can look at the camera permissions. Then on top, like there's so many things, and not just like one aspect of a consumer, right? You can look at the computer, how computers set up. You can look at specific social media, specific apps that people use. Like you can really niche down. And so I honestly just take like the most popular things that I can think of that I envision struggling with. On top of that, shout out to my mother. She gives me so many ideas.
Nice.
Because she always asks the questions, and I'm like, oh, those things where you're like, oh, mom, come on, like you should know this by now. But then I'm like, oh wait, that's a good idea. I guarantee you other people have this question. So now I like really encourage them, like, mom, if you have any questions, please tell me so I can make a video about it.
Yeah, like you're calling her, and grilling her for things that you're like, what frustrates you today, mom?
Yeah, exactly. Like before I was like, oh, mom, stop calling me. And now like, mom, please call me so I know what to do. But yeah, I think my mom is my biggest cheerleader. So it's funny. And I just get like ideas from her. Like anytime I meet new people and I like tell them, oh, I work in cyber, it's like whatever that pops up in their head are like, oh, I have an issue with this. How can I do this? Or, what does this mean? Or I think someone might be in my phone. How do I check? Like any question I ever get about cyber is like, okay, that could be content.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you, another curiosity, I mean, obviously your TikTok and your Instagrams are huge right now, especially I think TikTok's like 900,000. Like, did you just grow casually over time, or did you have like one viral, like, and like that was the explosive video that did it?
Yeah. So with Instagram, it was like mine's very different from a lot of other people. I have like viral videos, and that's what like gets me like 20, 30,000 followers. And then I have other videos that just go to like, 20, 30,000 people. So for me, mine's more of like the virality of it. So I did have like one viral video. I remember I was actually in Paris, and I like reposted like an old TikTok onto my Instagram, and I like was on vacation. I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's like the middle of the night. I was like, oh. But I'm like, I was committed to posting once a day on Instagram at that point when I was trying to build it. It's like, no, you got to post once a day. Just repost one of the old ones from TikTok that you haven't posted on Instagram yet. And it like went crazy. And then that got me to like 100. And then I have like, a few viral videos every couple months where like it'll grow to like, 20, 30,000 from just one viral video.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So we had a question a little while ago when we were talking about your academic career, and I'm going to pull the question up, but I want to ask it in a slightly different way. So you were talking about hating math and wanting to push through on math because, in physics. And I can totally dig on that. Computer science degree, they make you go all the way up to like Calc 3 and stuff. But you kept pushing yourself. So whether it's math or it's something else, like no matter what, it doesn't matter what job you have in chat right now. There's things about your job you like, and there's things about your job you don't like. There's things that you need to learn and you don't want to, and there's things that you're excited to get up for. So, I guess, Caitlyn, what's your strategy or approach for kind of like dealing with the things that don't fill your cup, but you have to go learn or you have to go, practice or whatnot?
Yeah. I think I'm a little different than most people because I take it as a challenge, and it's like, it's to my own detriment a lot of times. Like, I'm going to figure this out. I don't care how long it takes. Like I'm going to figure it. There's no way I'm not going to figure this out. And even if I didn't figure it out like the best way, like math I was actually good at. It was physics I was terrible at. And I think both physics 2 and 3, I got a C-. Like I barely passed physics. Same with MATLAB. Those are and every other class I got an A, but I barely passed that. But I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. I will pass. And I mean, I think I've had that since I was little. I know. Like my mom's told me stories about how many times people are like, oh no, like I don't think she can do that. And my mom's like, oh, you shouldn't tell her that. Like you should not tell her that. So it's more of like a personal thing of like, never want to leave this earth thinking that there's something I couldn't do. Because at the end of the day, if you don't believe in yourself and you don't think you can, like, there's nothing that we can't do besides like maybe like growing wings and flying. But take it with a grain of salt. There's nothing that I think that sounds like the worst thing ever, where if I left and I was like, oh, I really wanted to try this, but I just didn't give my time to it.
Yeah. It's all a mindset. I mean, I'm glad you have that personal drive, because that drives you. But for people in chat, like if you don't have that inner drive, I just read this today, frankly, so it seems very germane. But it's a mindset. Like, don't think, if someone tells you can't do it, don't take that as a Bible. If it hasn't been solved before, don't take that as the truth, right? Like you kind of form your own not own reality, but you got to challenge yourself, because no one knows better than you if you can push it and do it.
Well, yeah. And also just on that really quickly is like, if you're not interested in it, like you don't have to like prove to yourself or anyone else, like don't waste the time. Like I've learned as I've gotten older, I'm like, I really, really value my time, and I'm not going to do and spend time on something like if I don't think it's necessary or don't feel like it's part of my purpose or vision or goal. Obviously with school, I push myself because it's like, I want to have the best grades as possible so I can have like my pick of job.
Yeah.
But like nowadays, like as you get older, like it's really, you get to choose your own adventure. We're going to have that as a theme. But,
I like it. This choose your own adventure episode. So speaking of that, Cybersecurity Girl, you do a lot of, kind of end user awareness training, education. It sounds like you said you niche into mobile, which is cool because everybody's got one. But you also help people break into industry, which is a kind of a pillar thing here at Simply Cyber. We even have a when we do a daily stream, the one for the Sands Award, actually, we do it every single day. And when chat and someone announces that they got a job, we actually play the Miley Cyrus, like, I came in like a wrecking ball. Right? And we all celebrate it. There's a whole emote. It's an experience. We love it. So I know that you help people, and I'm sure you get that same satisfaction of knowing that you're positively impacting people. But in the GRC space, which is where I love to live, when you're helping people, people are asking, what are some of the go-to things that you advise people who are interested? Because there are people in chat right now who are looking to break in or pivot into industry, and GRC is very appealing to them just because of some of the technical hurdles that you don't have to jump over as high.
Yeah. So there's a few things I say. First of all, I want to start off by saying like our system is flawed in general. Like the training is flawed. The government, like the hiring is completely flawed. Like there's a lot of issues with it. There's no good way of going about it. So for me personally, and what I'm trying to fix that, like I'm working with the government a little bit, I'm working with this NIST. I'm really trying to figure out how to best support this. I'm working with, Fortune 500 companies to figure out how they can better hire. But in the meantime, for me, it's like networking is key. I hate saying this, your network is your net worth, but it's so true right now. People keep thinking like, oh, I'm going to take this like $5,000-$10,000 course and get a certification and then I'll have a job. No, like you can see people that have certifications, you can see people that have, degrees, and they're still not getting a job. And I always say like, it's not needed. What's needed is understanding of the area you want. So if you're already in GRC, you're already one step ahead, but also understanding what you can specialize in GRC, right? There's so many different government like laws and stuff that you can specialize in, and start showing that you can add value to the company. So when I say that, I mean like get actual like experience, and experience does not have to come from a paid job. Like you would be so surprised at how many companies out there have absolutely no idea what they're doing with GRC. If you talk to them about ISO or NIST and they're like, what are you talking about? You can start doing the mapping for them. You can map HIPAA to whatever. Like you can do exercises that are getting you experience and understanding for the roles that you want. And on top of that, like networking is so, so important. I think you'd be better off networking with the time that you have versus like spending time studying for a certification that's useless. Like no offense, Security Plus is, I would love to get your opinion on this. is great to show that you have like a baseline, but like right now, I don't think it's necessary at all for like GRC purposes. Like for me, GRC is like, oh, if you want to go more privacy, like maybe you should get like an IAPP certification and show that you have some privacy chops, or like specific areas of, look at the tech stack that's look at the tech stack that's used for your area, like your niche, and try to get certified in that. Like, for example, OneTrust is like huge for privacy, and tons of companies use OneTrust. So maybe get a certification in OneTrust, but don't be getting these like general certifications that don't mean anything. And spend time network with the people that you look up to, that you want to be, that you want their career. Ask them questions, like just try to figure out, because we always want to hire people that like show authenticity and drive and motivation and passion, and you won't know that unless you're getting to know that person.
Yeah, I 100%. So let's unpack it. Now Caitlin and I are talking here. Okay, so as far as Sec Plus goes, certifications in general, it's aside from a couple, it's very much just like not a scam, but like it's a huge revenue generating thing, right? Like that's what you boil it down.
Door, maybe.
What's that?
It may get your foot in the door.
Well, so that's what I was going to say. So I regularly advise people the following. You like, for brand new people, A+, Net Plus, like learn it, but don't take the exams. Just learn the material. Like if you're in an interview and you have the knowledge from Net Plus, like it's going to come out in the interview because you're going to say the things that you need to say. Security Plus and it's just a necessary evil. HR uses it to screen people. ATS systems use it to screen. It's not like it means you're ready to like crush cybersecurity. It just means that you can get in front of the line. And also I tell people it's unfortunate because a lot of people have Security Plus now. So it's like you're in the same boat with everybody else. So like it doesn't really differentiate you.
Like 5 years ago, if you had Security Plus, it would differentiate you. Now it doesn't differentiate you. I will say I've kind of done a workaround with a lot of the people that I mentor about it. Cause like if they're like actually studying for it, and a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to apply to jobs until I get it. I'm like, why don't you put it on your resume? What I used to do is I put the certifications that I was studying for on my resume with a star and with an asterisk. And at the bottom, I'd say like certification, we'll be sitting for the certification exam on this day. Then It's on your resume. You're not lying. You're telling them that you're taking the certification. It gets you in because it's on your resume and you don't have to deal with it.
That is 1,000% right. That hack is great. You can even use that hack, frankly. Again, you never lie on your resume, ever. No. I'm never promoting that. But I will say, if you are in the first day of your 4-year bachelor's degree, you can put bachelor's degree in progress, graduation date 2029. And when the ATS screens it, it's, the bachelor's degree. So like, it's you got to play the game, right? Like, I mean, we're GRC people, but I mean, hacking is within the cyberspace. So like, you just have to play the game a little bit. Just quickly, CISA is another one that I advise. That one has market value. Yeah. So, but yeah, 100%. And then the other thing that you said, Caitlin, that like, I swear to God, if we were in the same room, I would like high five you right now, because I feel so strongly. And I've actually had some disagreements with professionals who will remain unnamed at this time, of the value of networking and community. And it's just a lot of jobs don't get published, right? Like I know multiple instances where somebody told me in a group DM or a private DM, like, oh, I got a new job. Like, I'm super excited. Like, thanks for what you did. Like, do you know anyone who can do my current job? Like, I have a current job that I'm leaving. It'd be great to like, connect with someone in the community. That job never gets posted. And for many reasons, right? As a hiring manager, I don't want to go to market and do all the interviews if I know I've got a locked candidate that can just start next week and you can train them. And you know what I mean? So community, so worth it. Network is your net worth, 100%. Nick Barker's in chat. He loves community. Do you have any tips? Because like, here's another thing. I want your thoughts on this, right?
Yeah.
So networking can be really intimidating. For the uninitiated, they think it's like walking up to a group of people at a conference and being like, hello, like it's high school or something. It's not, right? But people think that. Some people think it's overwhelming. It's beyond them. what are your, like, do you have any like, oh, you could try this or try that, or this works, or anything like that, like actionable?
Yeah. So this might be a little biased because of who I am, but I think like starting to share with your network on LinkedIn currently what you're doing, how you're studying, like interesting articles that like with your thoughts, like start selling yourself. Like this sounds so bad. I don't like saying selling yourself, but like you are your own cheerleader. Like if you're not selling yourself, no one else will sell yourself. And if you're not showing your network how great you are, then they're never going to know. And so one thing I always tell is, well, first of all, I would start like finding people on LinkedIn and messaging them. Don't just like add them as a connection, message them with it. Like I 100% read all of the messages that are sent with a connection request. And if it's something that I'm interested in, I will accept. If I get a connection request from people and I don't know, I will not accept. So it makes a huge, I don't know about you, but it makes a huge difference for me if I get a message with someone explaining what they want. So find people that you could connect with, and maybe like, don't immediately message them and be like, I need to network, but like have them in your network. And when you're starting to share more about your life, more about your career goals, more about, your thoughts about whatever news story that's happening, they're going to start seeing you pop up more and more, and it's going to be more familiar to them. And then when you reach out to them in a month or two after, you're going to be a lot better of networking with them than just like randomly going up to someone and like saying, hey, like I need your help. So I think that's like a huge thing. And then the other thing is, I do think at events, like go with someone you already know and have them introduce you to people. Like this is, again, like once you have like a mentor, like it's really easy. Like I've mentored a lot of people. I went to a Women in Cybersecurity conference and I had one of my interns with me, and I literally I didn't know anyone. I was just like, let's go up to these people. I'll tell them who you are and how great, what you did for me and how great you were, and like try to get you a job. And she got like 2 job opportunities just from that. So your mentors, your community is like really, really helpful. If you start with one person that you know at an event and have them introduce you to other people, it's way easier than just blindly going up to people and being like, hey, I'm Caitlyn. I mean, you could do that too, but a lot of people won't do that. So.
Well, yeah. And I'll tell you, I literally, just as a funny story, like I hadn't spoken to Caitlyn prior to this, and she and I were at the same party a couple weeks ago, and I literally went up to her. I was like, hello, I'm Jerry. Like, so it can be done. It's just not a best practice all the time. But I will say, super solid move. Taking that individual and introducing them. And I want to point out something that maybe missed here. Okay. So by Caitlyn going around and introducing her mentee to these people, and she got 2 job offers, you got to remember, Caitlyn wasn't doing it so this mentee can do something for her or, later in life. She was doing it and, being good and putting good out into the world. Now imagine, if you will, Caitlyn, something goes wrong, or Caitlyn gets fired, or Caitlyn, whatever, whatever. Like she could call this person and be like, hey, I'm back on the market. You know anything? And like, you could easily right there, that's like a great network connection. Not that you ever planned it. Not that you were like, oh, I'm going to get this person a job at this conference, and then one day I'm going to call in that favor. It's just, don't plan it that way. I always say it's like throwing seeds out into a field. You got to water all of them, but maybe some of them don't grow and some grow into these magnificent trees. But like, you can't be like, oh, I'm only going to water this one because that's the one that's going to turn into something. So that's my big speech on the value of networking and like the mindset of putting good out.
You'd be so surprised. Like people will be so surprised at like, just like the web that you're creating of like people that you know or meet or connect with, like it continues to grow. And I swear it helps like leaps and bounds, like a couple years later. Like start mentoring and even if you feel like you don't, I would say start mentoring, like be a mentor and not just a mentee. You'd be surprised, like people in high school you can mentor. And like, I mean, some of the people that I've mentored now are like directors at Accenture. And I'm like, whoa, that's like my goal, right? My goal is to have all my mentees do like significantly better than me in life, because then if I ever need to call for a favor, they're good.
Yeah.
But no, that's not the point. The point is like, I want to see them succeed. And the other thing I wanted to say is everyone in cybersecurity, I feel like at this moment in time, that's like, in like a director level or like considered high up, all kind of got into cybersecurity like haphazardly because cybersecurity wasn't a thing. And so there's so many people that want to give back because someone had brought them in and it's changed their life. And there's so many people that want to give back and do the same thing because of that. So this is like the best time to find mentors or even be a mentor yourself. It's amazing. Networking is super, super important. I cannot stress that enough.
It is incredibly important. Please, like, we're gonna clip that video you just did, and when I say it on stream in the mornings, we'll just play Caitlyn saying it, and that'll be fine. Another thing too is, like, there's different ways, but one that I want to bring up because it's particularly valid given you and I right now. Like, so Simply Cyber, I call it mentoring at scale. I started the channel not to become what it's become. I started it because I was getting the same questions over and over again. And instead of, spending 15 minutes to answer each question, I just made a 15-minute video and sent it to people. And you are also doing it. So you can mentor in a asynchronous way. You can help people. Mad Hat's in chat right now. He's helping tons of people. Tyler Ramsby's in chat helping tons of people with their stuff. And Caitlyn has huge following, helping tons of people. So there's an opportunity there. I just want to share this and then get Caitlin's thoughts on it. One weird value of that is, yes, you're building this huge network and you're building a community and you're part of a community. But I've literally gotten job offers where, like, I got the call and they're like, hey, like, what will it take for you to quit your job and come work with us? And I'm like, what? And do you want to see my resume? Are we interviewing? They're like, no. Like, we've like basically stalked you on social media. We know exactly who you are, exactly what you can do for us. And we need you. And I did that twice. One time I did it like that. And then another time, I just Caitlyn, true story. I got called by the CEO of a company at like 5 or 6 o'clock on a Tuesday. I'm like, oh, that's weird getting this call. And they're like, hey, like, we're having some cash flow issues. So, like, you're not getting a paycheck tomorrow. And I'm curious, like, how long can you go without a paycheck? I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And they're like, how long can you go without a paycheck? I'm like, I'm not going to go without a paycheck. They're like, all right, well, I just want to give you a heads up. I like hung up and then called a CEO of another company and was like, hey, I'm on the market. And he's like, cool. Can you start tomorrow? I'm like, I said, can I start Monday? He said, yeah, okay. So I hung up and I called the other guy back. I'm like, I quit. And he's like, oh, that happened way faster than I thought. Yeah. So there's that power of networking as well.
Yeah. And I've gotten a similar situation where I'm like, I was way better off quitting my full-time job and really going to do this, because like you said, like, once you start networking and mentoring and like getting your name out there and like just being present, like with the people in your area, in the area, like, then you're like unstoppable.
100%. Or you could be a rapper. Tyler Ramsby, he's a pen tester by day, but he helps a ton of people, and he's also a rapper.
Wait, can we get him on? I want to hear a rap.
Oh yeah, he's got some great raps. Tyler, if you want to come on and do Black Hoodie on, that's his. He's actually Tyler. Are you rapping at I think he's rapping officially at Red Team Village at DEF CON this year. Do you go to conferences, Cailin? And hold on, really quick. John V with a super chat.
Did we just become best friends?
Yep. Thank you, John V, with the super chat. Speaking of mentoring, John V does mentor people in the AI ML security channel on the Discord server. So thanks for that, John, and thanks for the super chat. Cailin, what conferences do you go to? Like, what gets you excited?
Yes. As I used to love conferences when I was younger. I feel like I was like just like a young sprout, just bouncing around, going to all the parties. Like, and by the way, I have a rule that I do not drink at any work event ever. Just blanket statement. Just not happening. I had an issue my first conference ever. Not like that I had an issue, but like I was put in an uncomfortable position, and I was just like, I don't ever want to be in this position again.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's a long story for another day, but I just never drink. So I used to just go around, like, have all this energy and like meet everyone, and it was great. I feel like as I've gotten older, conferences are a lot harder. It's hard. It's hard to go to these and like keep up, and then like you want to make sure it's like worth your while. So the conferences I have like fully on my list right now is RSA. I always go to RSA. Mm-hmm. The Women in Cybersecurity Conference, I'm pretty sure, like WESIS, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go. Those are like and Cyber Marketing Con. Were you at Cyber Marketing Con?
No, I wasn't. I attended it virtually, and I thought about going this year. I talked to Chris about it, and Deb and Jason from Black Hills were there. But no, there was a conflict. I forget what it was, but there was a conflict that weekend for me. So I attended virtually.
I had a conference in Saudi like the week before, and I was like, and then I like really regretted it. I had FOMO. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to like not go to as many, but conferences, especially if you're starting out, oh my gosh, you meet everyone. You just have to have the confidence enough to go up to like booths and talk about, like, understand their pain points, talk about how you could potentially fix it. But like every single job that I ever was offered, even in school, like when I went to the Society of Women Engineering conference, every single job I got was from the conference. So you'd be surprised at how much you can network at conferences. So if I think it's really, really important. Black Hat, RSA, WESIS, Convenus for security awareness professionals. I'm again trying to do more international conferences now, but what about you? What's like your non-negotiable conferences?
So every year, so I have younger kids right now, so I try to go to like as few as possible, but I always go to Wild West Hackin' Fest in Deadwood, South Dakota. That is like that is hands like Simply Cyber hosts a conference, and Wild West Hackin' Fest rivals it for my favorite conference. That's how good it is. Of course, Simply CyberCon, our own conference, this community's conference, is dope. And then I go to Black Hat DEF CON, and that's basically my entire annual run. Although I will say I got invited to turn to speak in B-Sides Romania this year in May, and I've accepted it because they're basically flying me out there and going to drive me around. I get to go to Dracula's castle and do cool stuff. So I was like, all right, like, you know, I feel bad putting my family out for 6 days, but that's kind of like one of those once in a lifetime things for me.
Yeah, I think one of maybe it was Romania or another place near Romania. A B-Sides reached out to me for that too, and I was like, it's a long flight.
It's very long. In fact,
a long flight.
I would have thought it was. I would have thought it was not a scam, but like I was going to get my organs harvested, or like I was, or like just not legit or something. But somebody who went last year reached out to me and said that they wanted to reach out to me. So like I guess it was trusted, either that or
or your organs are going to be harvested later this year. At Dracula's castle.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We're running long here, so I do want to ask you, Caitlyn, though, what, like, do you have any speaking engagements coming up? Any projects coming up? Any like big changes or anything that people can connect with you or see? You know, in I guess 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I always have speaking engagements, so just follow along for my Instagram and LinkedIn because I post constantly. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to be posting.
All right. Here's Caitlin's LinkedIn, by the way. I'm going to start dropping these these links in chat. So please continue, Caitlyn, but I'm going to drop these in chat.
Yeah. So I just finished up a webinar with Sysdig, and I'm doing a keynote speech for Rubric and on the 21st or 23rd. I think it's 23rd. But there's a lot of going on. I mean, I'm speaking at conferences in Dubai and Saudi and Armenia, and I don't know what else. Every day is a new fun adventure. So every day I'm like, okay, what am I doing today? And then usually whenever I figure out what I'm doing is when I post on LinkedIn. I'm like, here's what I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to speak as much as possible. I applied to speak at RSA. I don't know if it got accepted yet. I don't know. I think we find out in like a week or so. But I should be at WESIS, which there's a lot going on. Just follow me and you'll figure it out.
Yeah,
you'll be updated, I promise.
So the social medias is the best place. I went ahead and dropped all those links, Insta, LinkedIn, and Cybersecurity Girl, her main landing page. And I think even if you miss those, if you go to cybersecuritygirl.com, it's like a classic web page where there's the socials up on the top bar. So you can get to all the things Caitlyn and find out what she's up to. Yeah. So Caitlyn, this has been a lot of fun. I like genuinely appreciate it. Going from GRC to social media to conferences and breaking in. I feel like we covered a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah, we got real intimate real fast. So well, I was like, oh man, this is on LinkedIn. That's great. People are really getting to know me now.
Well, I genuinely appreciate it. And chat, guys, John with the super chat, thank you. And then, of course, all the wonderful questions and engagement. You guys really brought the heat. I saw Caitlyn also paired with over on LinkedIn. So we saw some folks coming from Caitlyn's LinkedIn page. So it was great having you guys visit with us on Simply Cyber Firesides. So on behalf of chat, Caitlyn, I want to say thank you. Thank you incredibly for coming on and spending the time with us and really inspiring us and helping people, really understand the value of networking and best practices on getting in and kind of leveling up in cybersecurity. It's been a real treat. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it as well. So continue to do what you do, be a mentor, do all these awesome streams and help other people because it's been great. I mean, look at all the people you've affected.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're great. The Team SC folks are just phenomenal. All right, everybody, thank you so very much. Thanks, mods. Thanks, community. Thanks, Caitlin. And until next time, stay secure.